Tonight on 0800 TARDIS Live, we've got Carrot back in the hot seat and you get to see our new location. So let's hit on the rolling credits. TARDIS Live here on this lovely Tuesday evening. I'm Sam Summers, your host, and we'll be talking about the last two Doctor Who episodes. Reason for doing two tonight is we had a bit of a hiatus last week because with me moving house. So the two episodes we're talking about, which is The Witchfinders, followed by It Takes You Away. So first up here with The Witchfinders. Now, I have to admit, there was a little bit more hype on the episode, but I wouldn't sit there and say that I wouldn't call it as the biggest hype of what I thought there could have been. I do think Alan Cummings played a very good role as King James, but it's my personal opinion. I don't think it's necessarily 100% the best story, but I mean, each to their own on their opinions. It was still interesting to see how the ducking stool concept worked. That was definitely something that was, a bit foreign for the modern day world. Basically, if you're accused of witchcraft, you're going to be dead one way or another. So that definitely replicates that. Now there are a couple of talk about the ratings of the episode. The ratings with the Rotten Tomatoes gave an average score of 7.83, and the Tomatometer is sitting at 95%. Now, coming from the review sources, there's Entertainment Weekly gave it a B+, Daily Mirror gave it 4 stars, Metro gave it 4 stars, New York Magazine gave it 5, Radio Times only gave it 2, AV Club gave it B+, The Telegraph gave it 4 stars, The Independent gave it 4 stars, and TV Fantastic gave it 4 stars. So, obviously everyone's opinions are a bit different here, and, do it on there. And it also had 5.66 million viewers overnight, which is 27.9% of the total UK audience, making it the 4th highest overnight viewership rating and 19th highest for the week overnight of all UK TV channels. So that's definitely good news, and it's good to see Doctor Who there. Now, with that episode, obviously you saw about the ducking stool, King James in there making his way. As I have to sit there and say, I don't know what much else I can sit there and say about it myself, just because of where my opinions sit on it. I'll probably say the biggest one there is talking about was mainly I think it was the writing partly in there. I don't know if maybe it should have been a slightly longer episode, or possibly a two-parter, but then to do a two-parter, it may have not actually worked as a two-parter story as well. So yeah, it's I'd say, you know, one of more my lowlights for the season, but you never know. It could change once it's been rewatched a couple of times. This particular one I only watched once. Usually I tend to watch the episodes twice before sitting there and doing this show, just so I can catch what I've missed. Now on the other episode, It Takes You Away. Now this, I don't know. This one has... See, I actually quite like the story, but this one has really got mixed ratings as well. I think it was good that you sat there and saw Graham's wife, Ryan's mother, make a reappearance, Grace. But yeah, it seemed a bit like, what do you call it, Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe sort of style, with you sitting there going into a secret hidden world where the dead are alive, sort of thing. It took a while to get your head around. How do you? It's a bit. Oh, I think it was good how it was trying to say based in Norway. However, one thing I have to sit there and note on there, they didn't talk about the TARDIS playing around in your head to translations in your head. I do remember it with Jenna Coleman. It's like, you're a British girl and you speak so perfect Russian, and she's like, you know, I'm speaking English, or you know, that sort of thing. Which, you know, but in this case, yeah, they didn't sit there and talk about how the TARDIS sits there and translates everything in your brain. Or translate, you know, the TARDIS translation circuits don't get into your brain and sit there and do that. That was something that was, shall we just say, it's a bit... something that hasn't been mentioned in the season so far, and maybe it might need to be done. Now, the other one is the professional ratings. Rotten Tomatoes had an average score of 7.65, with the tomato meter being at 100%. Entertainment Weekly gave it a B. Daily Mirror gave it 3 stars. Metro gave it 3.5. New York Magazine gave it 4 stars. Radio Times gave it 1. Okay. The AV Club gave it an A-. The Telegraph gave it 4 stars. The Independent gave it 5. And TV Fanatic gave it 3. So, yeah, a bit of a mixed bag on the reactions there. I also think it sat there and elevated Bradley Walsh's character Graham, where I think he had more of a lead charge this time round. But that's just, you know, different things in my opinion on there. So it's going to be, yeah, it's been a very interesting week. Well, should I say fortnight in this situation of episodes. So I think it's time for us to take a break, and Carrot will join me in the chair next to the store, since I haven't really got much more to say here. And welcome back to 0800 TARDIS Live. I think you've chosen the wrong camera, Bradley, but that's all good. Yeah, you're having a fun day on the desk, aren't you? Close up.
Oh.
Yeah, okay, that's a lot better. We're joined here by Carrick, who's going to be talking to us about the last 2 episodes of Witchfinder, and it takes you away. So let's start off with the Witchfinder.
No. First, I want to start off with the disclaimer. Okay, so last week I said Mark Eddy, who was Robert Baratheon, was in Kablam. I was like, I was wrong. That was Lee Mack. Mark Eddy is going to be in next week's episode. So just in case anyone noticed that little slip up of mine. So now
I think you did. I don't know if anyone else did.
Typical. Okay, so the Witchfinders, I think it's safe to say I liked it a lot more than you did.
Yeah.
Now, for the most part, was a pretty interesting drama for the whole historical context, and this is really the first episode to actually make a deal out of the fact the Doctor is a woman now, and in this setting, it would have been weird if they hadn't, so I think that's fine. And
yes, yeah.
Speaking of which, I just want to say this story is a bit history because it's the first new series episode to be written and directed by women, and the second episode of televised Who. There's a lot of audio that's written and directed by women, although nowhere near enough because Big Finish is overwhelmingly white gay dudes. It's the first televised piece of Who to be written and directed.
I have to, on that comment there, I think Big Finish goes on talent and not goes on, what do you call it, gender quotas.
That's what you might think, but some of the stories they've put out over the years. But anyway, back on this, and also they don't have enough writers. Like, they have a very shallow pool of writers, and some of them are clearly overworked. Like, they put out like 8 hours of stuff a year. But anyway, first bit of Who to be written and directed by women since Enlightenment, the best story of the 1980s. You can fight me on that.
Yeah, that's quite a long time ago.
Yeah.
Oh, that would have been when John Nathan Turner was producer.
Yeah, that was written by Barbara Clegg and directed by Fiona Cumming. Fiona Cumming is a pretty interesting director from the 80s because she always had a bit more of a fantastical style. And the story is a very lyrical, fantastical one, which is weird because you contrast that with the other best episode of the Davison era, was The Caves of Androzani, which is very, very, for want of a better word, butch.
Yeah.
But, on the Witchfinders, again, I found this interesting because most of it is pretty solid historical drama with a pretty grim supernatural underlay when the mud zombies start appearing. And Alan Cumming is giving one of the best guest performances ever, but I just want to say there's actually 2 great guest performances going on here. The other one is coming from Siobhan Finneran, whose name I am mangling, best known to everyone else as O'Brien from Downton Abbey. She's she plays Becca Savage in this, who is kind of one of the most horrifying human monsters that the series has produced in a long time.
Yes.
I mean, she is basically committing mass murder to try and save her own skin. There's a fascinating desperation going on with her characters that she's really just trying to stay alive, but the atrocities she commits in trying to do so just kind of just shows her for how horrifying she is. And it's like, when you compare that to Alan Cumming's theatrics, which are delightful, like, Siobhan Finneran is way more restrained and also a lot more intense. Like, she's a pretty icy coldness to her character, which, given what she's doing, it makes her pretty scary.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I have to say, doing all of that is like trying to sit there and try to have the lie keep falling over.
Yeah, and it's like, and this was where at first when I saw this, I thought, is this really a good thing? Because it felt like the episode was kind of falling apart. Is when she gets overwhelmed by the Morax and turns into a ranting supervillain, which I felt kind of, must we? Like, I've watched so much and listened to so much Doctor Who, like, there's enough possessed, ranting, boring aliens with tedious voice filters out there, but in some way I actually kind of respect it because she's such a monstrous human being and her punishment is to be transformed into a literal monster. And yeah, and this is where the episode got weird, because as like I was saying, at first it was kind of doing a folk horror witch finding, like the atrocities of humanity, then there's an actual genuine supernatural threat going on. Then we actually explain what the threat is, and it was kind of like, what? And then it was like, so what's going on is that there are these mud aliens called the Morax that Becca Savage accidentally unleashed and got possessed by them in the process and went on her murderous rampage to try and keep suspicion away from herself. But, okay, so it's mud monster aliens who say they were imprisoned for war crimes, and you know, sometimes you don't have to explain what's going on.
Yes,
Indeed, there's episodes which are kind of going for a horror beat, like this one was at the start. It's actually almost better if you don't explain what's going on.
Oh, exactly.
Like,
sometimes you gotta leave the mystery there.
Yeah, like Midnight is one of the best episodes ever made, and what the monster in that was, we have no idea. And if it had been like at the end saying it's like, "Oh, I am Solos from the planet Guk, and was imprisoned here for war crimes," it's like, did we need to know this?
Yeah,
it's like, do we need to have whatever names the writer pulled out of a Scrabble bag this week? Like,
well, yeah, exactly. Well,
and that's what I thought at first when watching it.
Yes.
But then when you start screaming, "My king will fill your king!" when the king in question who's under threat of being killed is such a mincing gay, and then when the king who threatens to do the filling takes the form of a very large grey phallus, that's like, okay, this is...
Yeah.
It's so camp and OTT, I ended up loving it. It's like, this... It feels like it's invoking the creature from the pit of all episodes.
Yeah,
Which is an episode which gets a bad rep, but I swear it's actually pretty fun to watch because it's very tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when it came to that, I'm not sure if I wished it had stayed on the more serious path it had set up at the start, but on the other hand, I had so much fun from how ridiculous it got near the end that I kind of don't care.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, our reactions to these things are basically emotional anyway. Like, I still maintain that Demons of the Punjab was a better episode than this, the best of the season so far. But,
yeah, it was one that I actually would agree with you there, because it's one that you wouldn't have expected to be the best necessarily by the title name, but it's very well written, Demons of Punjab.
Yeah, it's not just when you're talking about the writing. I think the story was pretty well written in terms of dialogue and definitely in terms of characterization. I just have issues with the way the threat was revealed, and even then I don't really care. It's like, I mean, the way James is written is pretty fascinating, because yes, he really was basically like this in real life. And he's generally fairly well regarded as a monarch, at least he is now. If he had a big downside in terms of his ability to rule, it was his tendency to promote his boyfriends a little too much.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the whole paranoid witch-finding thing and gross misogyny, that's not out of character for want of a better word, although it is kind of hilarious to know that the Doctor was at one point married to his predecessor on the throne. You know, the whole period of history I kind of love, because once Henry VIII dies, most of the major power players are women. Like, you've got Queen Mary, Lady Jane Grey, then Mary goes, Elizabeth comes to the throne, Mary Queen of Scots, who was James's mother. Oh yeah, when he says his mother murdered her father, that story's amazing. Like, so she was very unhappily married to his dad. He was a dick. Yes. And so he's at his house, and his house is rocked by explosions, which turns out to be gunpowder. And then they find his body strangled in the garden. It's like, oh no, my husband died in an explosion. It's like, he was strangled, ma'am. Well, that's what explosions do, isn't it? Excuse me, I'm just going to get immediately married to this other guy, because it's like she was Catholic, so she couldn't divorce him. But
oh yes,
it's hilarious. It's a pretty hilarious. It's one of, like, people are going to tell you, well, it's not proven that she murdered him. It's like, she definitely did. Like, who else did it? And like, Elizabeth wrote this amazing letter to her saying, the rumours that you have murdered your husband. It's like something on the sides, well, of course those are untrue. It's like the most passive-aggressive stuff. It's amazing. Yeah. But yeah, it's a period of history where most of the major power players are women, and the successor to the whole mess is a very gay dude in James. I've rambled a lot. So yeah, that's the Witchfinders. I'm going to throw that away and on to
It takes you away.
Which was not what people were expecting.
No.
The trailers kind of made it out to be a straightforward horror film kind of thing.
Yes, but really wasn't.
What we got was more of a weird mixture of Sapphire and Steel and Douglas Adams.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of does the annoying thing that Witchfinders did, whereby the name and nature of the threat are revealed annoyingly close to the end of the episode. But I think this one handled it a bit better because it still kind of fit the very bizarre tone that this episode has.
Yeah.
It's like one of the best reveals I think is that the monster in the normal world is just a recording that the dad set up. Like, nice bit of meta touch there. And dear God, the dad was a shit in this.
Yeah.
Like, I remember I was talking to some guys on Twitter. It's like we saw him in the trailer. I was like, ooh, daddy. But then his actually said, like, ugh, bad daddy.
Yeah.
But he kind of gets redeemed, I suppose. And can we talk about the fact the Doctor basically steals 2 men's wives in this?
Yes.
And then she has to politely break up with a frog with the voice of one of those wives.
Oh.
Yeah, there is smut featuring the 13th Doctor and that frog. I'm not making a guess, I have read it. It did not shock me, because nothing shocks me. I've been on the internet too long. But can we just say, when I say Douglas Adams, I mean a sentient universe that takes the form of a frog with the voice of a matronly lesbian. Like, that's very Douglas Adams.
Yeah.
I kind of find it how I actually felt very sad for the frog. It's like, oh, it's all alone. It's like the Doctor doing a little...
Because were they meant to be Zygons?
No.
Oh, were they not Zygons?
There's a joke when she says, like, you have a grandmother? It's like, oh, I had 7 grandmothers. Number 5 was my favourite. I was like, although she always thought grandmother number 2 was secretly a Zygon.
Oh.
It was that line.
Oh, because the way it made me sit there, I got the feeling it kind of was they could have been Zygons.
No, I never really got the feeling they could have been Zygons.
Maybe that was just me.
It was clearly something like drawn from their heads, or else they wouldn't have known so much about them. But one thing I did really like is that when they cross over into the mirror universe, they actually did do a mirror flip on the shot. But I actually only really noticed because the Doctor has her left ear pierced, but in this mirror universe it was the right one.
Ooh.
And there's other things too, like the dad, his Arctic Monkeys shirt, it's written in mirror writing. In the other universe, it's like they flipped the whole thing. It's like, so it's the outside too.
Yeah, so they went into a bit of detail then if they set their own flip sides. So that's something I didn't pick up. So yeah, maybe I need to sit there and stop watching it at the coffee cart.
It was a nice bit of detail, and this was really Graham's episode more than anyone else.
Yeah, I do think it was Graham's episode. I
haven't really talked about Bradley Walsh much this season, but he's delightful. I love him to be...
It's interesting to see him in it, because, I mean, I'm used to seeing him as the host of The Chase, so you're seeing him as more of a presenter role, not as a actor, and I mean, and now...
that's happened in the past, like when you had Catherine Tate as Donna, and also back in the 80s they got Nicholas Parsons, who was actually a game show host. They got him to play the priest in The Curse of Fenric, which that has been criticised a bit for stunt casting. I don't know why. He gave a great performance. Like, have you seen The Curse of Fenric?
I don't think I have.
It's a bit confusing. It actually feels a lot like a Stephen Moffat script before Moffat was writing, but
I think I might have that on VHS.
Yeah, but the priest character is honestly one of the better guest performances in the whole thing. But I'm not going to waffle on that too long. You have to watch it. What I'm saying is, stunt casting like that can work pretty much. And Bradley Walsh has been delightful this season. This has probably been the best episode for him. I'm a bit sad that Ryan didn't get to see the Mirror Grace, because she was his grandmother.
Yeah.
His relationship to her was the whole framing device of the first episode of this season.
Yes.
Like, although I actually am glad that we're getting consistent character arcs. Like, him calling him Granddad at the end was very much, I am crying.
It is finally actually getting into the line of, how do you sit there and say it? Like they're trying to have the family aspect line in there. Like, I mean, because I do remember from the first episode, it said, well, I can tell you, I'm not Grace's first, I'm Grace's second, but I definitely love her to bits, all that sort of thing. And it's just like, he made the point about, I'm not his first wife, I'm his second, and all that sort of thing, but, how I treat her, her and her grandkids as my own.
And there was you mentioned that you were wondering about the translation. As well, they all got translators implanted into them in the Ghost Monument, and presumably they're still there.
Well, that's great, yeah.
And probably, And maybe the doctors explain the TARDIS translation thing as well to them off screen, because that writing device was clearly put in there so they could have aliens speaking English without the TARDIS present. Personally, I would have just gone with, oh, we can understand what they're saying. That means the TARDIS must be nearby as a writing device in that one. But yeah, I don't think it. I think it makes perfect sense that they perhaps wouldn't question the fact that they all speak Norwegian. And hell, I don't know how many people in Norway speak English, but I'm guessing it's higher than the number of people in England who speak Norwegian.
Oh, definitely. No. Well, I mean, the episode is more of a. I mean, it's a British show, so yeah. I mean, because I do even during the 80s when they did, there was one was it 4-parter, because that's what they did back in the 80s. Well, the 70s, I think it was. Where they filmed in Paris, and then and then in the 80s there was one episode filmed in Amsterdam, and then there was one that was filmed in Spain. Yeah,
the Spain one I really like. It was supposed to be it was supposed to be filmed in New Orleans, funnily enough, which makes sense because a big theme of that episode is food. Now, the Two Doctors gets a bit of a bad rep for having a bit of a meandering plot. I honestly love it way more than it deserves. I probably think. But setting it in, it was like, oh, the budget doesn't stretch to New Orleans. Sorry, we're just going to have to make do with Spain.
Yeah, well, I mean, that was the 80s. I mean, well, no, it was Doctor Who.
I think it was because J&T, he wasn't the producer when City of Death was made. That was the one shot in Paris. But City of Death was such a massive success that he was kind of he tried to recreate it a couple of times. Like, the first time was with Arc of Infinity, which was filmed in Amsterdam. Arc of Infinity was not that good.
No, well, that was where Peter Davison played Omega as well as
Omega.
Yeah. Because they sat there and said the reason why some of those episodes ended up being filmed with, like how they filmed them in the different countries and that sort of thing, was because they had someone had contacts there, so they could do it on the smell of an oily rag.
Yeah, but I think with Paris it worked, City of Death it worked, because the script was a fuckload better than Arc of Infinity, and also because it kind of made the city a character in the story in a way. Like, it was very much entrenched in its setting. Arc of Infinity, half of it's set on Gallifrey, and while Gallifrey does hold this big, mythical, important place in the Doctor Who universe, it's actually kind of boring.
Yeah, and actually that was because that's where they had, because every time they had Gallifrey, every time they had Time Lords, they used to have new characters, except for Arc of Infinity and the 5 Doctors. Okay, who was the president?
Barusa. Barusa's a fascinating character because he's played by a different actor each time he turns up, but they're basically interchangeable because he keeps turning into crusty old white dudes.
Yeah.
The only thing that really shares is the Castellan, who's, I think, actually a bit of an underrated character. He's I know he's basically a one-dimensional jerk, but he also gets one of the best lines in the show's history.
Yeah.
What? No, not the mind probe!
Yeah.
And also, there's a bizarre thing going on with, in Arc of Infinity, there's a character called Chancellor Thalia. Then in the 5 Doctors, there's a character called Chancellor Flavia. Now, they're played by different actresses, but the actresses look pretty similar, and they have pretty similar names. It's like, did someone make a scripting error? Is she supposed to be the next incarnation? Why does she have a different but similar sounding name? It's a bit weird.
Yeah.
And then, although someone joked that the corpse the Master found in the Death Zone was actually Thalia, because Barusa has this line where two of the High Council went into the Death Zone. They never returned, and we have been talking about this for far too long. Back to It Takes You Away, where it was something you said about the Witchfinders. You wondered if it might be better as a 2-parter. I can see why the Witchfinders might need a bit more expansion, but I think 90 minutes would be a stretch.
Yeah.
But It Takes You Away, there's so many elements in there. I would actually have really liked to see it as a 2-parter. Because I said it was Graham's episode, and that's because Graham's the only person who really sees someone in the Mirror Universe.
Yes.
Not to be confused with the Mirror Universe from Star Trek. I would want to see if Ryan had gone there, would it also have shown him Grace, or would it have shown him someone else? Who would it show Yasmin, and who would it show the Doctor?
Exactly.
I think a lot of people were expecting the Solitrack to take the form of River or Missy or someone like that, and we're about why is it turned into a frog?
Yeah.
It's like, although, can I just say, people who are saying that the frog is too silly for this show, it's like, this isn't even the first time the show's had giant frogs. Like, in the 80s, you had Fall to Doomsday, where the villain was basically a giant frog with the mannerisms of Tony Blair.
Yeah.
And it's like, and so survived that, and also it survived Ingrid Pitt attempting to do jiu-jitsu with a giant green panther horse. Like, even if you think this didn't land, this is not going to end up in the show getting cancelled. Sorry, I've been on Twitter too long and seeing a bunch of drama queens, but honestly, I think they just pissed off and want the show to be cancelled because they don't like the fact the Doctor's a woman.
Oh, they need to sit there and get over themselves, to be honest. I mean,
yeah, honestly, when people say that something like this is not real Doctor Who, I just kind of rub my forehead and groan. It's like, there's no such thing as real Doctor Who.
Well, exactly.
Doctor Who is whatever the fuck the current showrunners want it to be.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
basically,
in the 60s it was like, we alternate between historicals and high-concept sci-fi. Then, it's like, Doctor Who in 1963 was not the same as Doctor Who in 2017.
Yeah, and also...
Now, Doctor Who in 1963 was not the same as Doctor Who in 1989. How Doctor Who in 1963 was not the same as Doctor Who in 1969. Like, the show changed drastically, even just within the black and white years. And like, there's a very sharp difference between the show in 1969 and 1970. Because they changed the format entirely. It's like, people saying this is not real Doctor Who, it's like, there's a lot of different areas of Doctor Who. You're not, what you'll bet, when you tell me that, I'm not hearing, oh, this isn't real Doctor Who. I'm hearing, you just didn't like this. And that's fine!
Well, I mean,
like, you don't have to like this. I'm ranting, let me rant, because there's a lot of different eras of Doctor Who, and it covers of such a wide range of tones and casts and characterization that very few people could like all of it. I do, but I'm a freak, so that I don't expect other people to like every single thing that Doctor Who has done. Rant over. Yes.
Well, I mean, if you sit and look at the black and white eras, they did have like right up to 10 parters. Like the War Games was a 10-parter episode.
The War Games is one of the best pieces of Doctor Who ever made, and I will fight people on that.
Oh, and I think it was a good season finale for black and white.
It's probably the best season finale the show's ever had. Actually, no. And I was trying to think of one that was better than it. I just realised it's just ones I like as much. I need to rewatch the War Games.
Yeah,
like it's a great story, but for obvious reasons, it's a bit hard to knuckle down and watch all 250 minutes of it.
Probably at one hit anyway. Yeah, it's a bit hard. Okay, well we'll switch back over onto me. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Carrick, for joining us on the show tonight. You can also sit there and keep up to date on our Facebook page, 0800 TARDIS. And you can also check out our website, 0800tardis.co.nz, and all for your Mark Who 42 fans. Mark Who 42 Regeneration is going on live. First episode was set there and filmed yesterday. It was filmed on Sunday in the United States, Monday over here. And have a good watch. So if you sit there, you can also watch that episode. That's shared on both Mark Who 42 and 0800 TARDIS. You can join us next week, and we'll see who's next in the guest. And in a fortnight's time, we'll have our 1 hour season finale where we review the whole season. So thank you for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your evening, Whovians.